Welcome to MSL Talk with Tom Caravela, a podcast specifically designed for MSLs and all things field medical. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining me for this podcast. My guest today is Dawn O'Reilly. She is a medical science liaison with Biodesics, and we talk about why and how clinicians make great MSLs. I think you guys are going to like this conversation. Dawn's awesome. Please remember to follow us on YouTube and Instagram, and don't forget to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Connect with me if you haven't already, and share this if you find some value in it. I really appreciate everybody that's sharing the podcast. Last thing, check us out on MSL Talk Live, which is on Clubhouse, and it's the first Tuesday of every month at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Dawn, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me. How are you?
Good. How are you, Tom?
Awesome. Awesome. This is exciting. Should we tell everybody how this came into being? Probably.
Sure, let's do it.
Yeah. So Dawn and I met at the MSL Society conference in Vegas. And it was interesting because it was the very, very last day. And we showed up to this. I thought it was like not a workshop, but it was a build a bike kind of charity thing where I thought we were just going to go there and build bikes for kids for the holidays. And it turned out to be like a team building thing. And everybody got broken out into groups and we had challenges. And it was so much more than that. And I was in Dawn's group. And we had to do this activity. And I don't know. All I know is before all was said and done, I was the MC with a microphone and Dawn was doing cartwheels. That was the gist of it.
That's about right. Yeah.
And that's how we met. And we started talking and here we are. And Dawn came up with a really good idea for a podcast. And this is something that we kind of touched on before, but not really in the same way. But we're going to talk about why clinicians make great MSLs. And the reason this is so relevant is because on my side of the equation, we're starting to get a lot of requests from companies for not just PharmDs, MDs, PhDs, but also nurse practitioners and physician assistants, and even, clinical, folks that come from the clinical background in specific, disease states. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Before we do that, let's have Dawn do an introduction.
Sure. Well, thank you, Tom, for having me on the show today. It's a pleasure to be here. Really excited to meet you at the MSL Society meeting. And so, my name is Dawn O'Reilly. I am currently a medical science liaison with Biodesics. I have a pretty unique background story, not one that you probably heard before. But, I do believe that every step along the way gets you to where you are today. So I currently reside in North Carolina. I am married with 3 children and a golden retriever. I grew up in Florida, went to Eckerd College on a soccer scholarship. At the time, I fell in love with research and I did a dissertation, and then I moved up to North Carolina. I did a PhD at the Wake Forest Molecular Medicine program. It's a translational research program, and I spent countless hours in the lab learning every little detail possible, and I really did love it. I defended that in 2008, and I still keep in touch with some of these people today. There was some parts of that were missing. I had always wanted to do more patient care, and I thought, well, what else could I do with that? And I did a postdoc at a biotechnology company, and still felt like, I wanted to get more closer to patients. And so I started looking, and that's when the PA career was introduced to me. I was 28 at the time, and I was like, okay, let's do this. I applied to Wake Forest. I started there in 2010 and graduated in 2012. And I had just had my first baby right after graduation and taking my boards, took some time off. And then I started working as the clinical research director at Wake Forest. And I collaborated with all these physicians and worked on their clinical trials and worked with all kinds of people, lab techs, nutritionists, and it was awesome. And I really enjoyed that position too. I was using my PhD, using the PA. And then about 10 months into that, I received a phone call to start this new clinic. And this was from a previous mentor of mine. And he's like, hey, I'm starting a new clinic in family medicine. Do you want to go, open up this clinic by yourself as a solo provider? And I was like, oh my gosh, no, I don't really want to do that. But I did. And it was great experience. Ran this family medicine clinic for about 5 years. After about 2 years of that, we hired a doctor on site. So it was me and the doctor for that time. And I really did enjoy working in family medicine. But, during that time, and I say this because I know a lot of other PAs who feel this way. We love taking care of patients. We love that aspect. But during that time, I started, getting tired and seeing patients over and over and over again, and the charting and the messages. And it was really hard to find that balance between the work and the life and, the family. I also had a second child during my family medicine days. And so I started looking into, what else could I do? And so at that time, I got a call to open up another clinic. It was more of a holistic based clinic, more functional medicine, integrated medicine, which is somewhat down my passion. I've had 2 back surgeries and chronic back pain. So that modalities have helped me tremendously. So I started this clinic with another institution, and it was going really well. We were, seeing patients in, really good ways and holistic manners. But financially, the clinic wasn't thriving as much as the institution wanted it to. So I moved on. And so the last 2.5 years, I actually went back to cardiology, which is what my PhD dissertation was in. And I spent I did cardiac clinic and cardiology inpatient medicine. The last 2.5 years, I, had a great team of people, doctors I worked with. And, the hours weren't all that bad. I mean, they were 10-hour days, but there wasn't a whole lot of flexibility. And as a mom, that's hard. And the patient care side is stressful. And, we in healthcare, we get into medicine to save lives. That's why we do this. And it sounds cliche, but it's true. And I imagined as a healthcare provider, it would be something super rewarding, a stable career, and for my family, and the learning never stops. And it doesn't. But healthcare is not for the faint of heart. It's one of the hardest careers out there, and especially with this pandemic, it's very hard because there's so much emotion involved. So it was starting to take a toll on me. And, there's people you meet along your journey, and those are the people I met that have gotten to me where I am today. And so, I did 10 years of the PhD research. I did 10 years of practicing clinical medicine. And now here I am as an MSL, and I'm blending both of those together with biodesics. So it's been great.
That's an awesome story. I mean, you have an awesome clinical background, and here you are. You wound up in industry. And I do hear this a lot from clinicians, that they love what they do. They really love the fact that they're saving lives and they get to interact with patients. But from a career standpoint, they're like, this isn't something I want to do for the rest of my life. Right.
Yeah. It's hard.
So I know that there are a lot of clinicians out there that would love to know, how did you transition into industry? What did that look like?
Yeah. So, like I said, my last job in specialty, it wasn't, I wasn't entirely happy with that. But there was still stuff that was missing. And so, I felt like, okay, what can I do? And I started, I met a really great friend, one of my best friends during my PhD time. Again, take advantage of all these people you meet along your journey, because you never know when they're going to come back and help you. He started off as a medical science liaison several years ago, and now he's senior director of clinical development of one of the companies at another company. And I've always gone to him for advice. I'm like, look, you were in medicine before, look what you're doing now. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm getting tired. And he said, you really should look into the MSL role. It's the best job I ever had, like best job. And, despite his recommendations for years, the thought of leaving medicine full time was terrifying to me. I couldn't grasp that concept yet. And so, I started looking into that. I had some other friends that have also left medicine for MSL, started talking to them. There's also this amazing Facebook group called PA Moms that has amazing advice. And I tell you, every week or so, there's at least one person that posts, what else can I do that's not clinical, because they were so burned out. And there's a few PAs on there that are MSLs, and they would comment, and I started connecting with them. I started messaging them on Facebook, messaging them on LinkedIn. Hey, tell me more about this. Tell me more about how you made that transition. And I met people that are PAs that have PhDs, that are MSLs, that are, that have doctorates that are PAs and MSLs. And I'm so grateful for all of them that have taken the time for those informal phone calls. This is how I met my amazing manager, Dr. Leona Hamrick. She's now our VP of Clinical Development and Medical Affairs. And she had just joined my company and was in charge of growing the MA team. That was small at the time. And so we had connected really just a few weeks prior on LinkedIn because of these groups that I just talked about. And she messaged me and she's like, hey, I have this awesome opportunity that's opening up on the East Coast. And, I said, well, I have been looking more seriously for a few months. I've, had a couple informal interviews here and there. So let's look into this. And so I went through this formal interview process, 5 or 6 or more interviews on the team. I gave that oral presentation in front of the company, and then she offered me the position. And so, she believed in me. I'm definitely forever grateful, but it was really, all these people I met along the way, and then meeting her and the networking that had me transition to that.
So in a word, basically networking got you the job.
110%, all networking.
All networking. Mm-hmm. So with that, what advice would you give to someone who is a clinician looking to become an MSL? What else would you tell them?
Yeah. So, it's a really, really good question. And, I get, and now that I'm in the MSL role, I get people messaging me all the time, tell me more, phone calls and it is very challenging to get into the MSL role. You know that. You know that clearly. And so, competition is fierce. Everyone is so smart. You have to go outside your comfort zone. You have to talk to anyone and anyone. You have to build that network. And so, I started off with creating that LinkedIn profile and using those keywords that, recruiters or other people would be looking at. So look at other MSL profiles and copy those. To do that. Also, Samuel Dyer has an amazing book called How to Break Into Your First MSL Role. Really, really good tips in that book. I'd recommend reading that and using it. The MSL Society meeting. Oh my gosh, that was amazing meeting. I met so many people. There were so many presentations that were helpful for, an aspiring MSL or MSLs already in practice, managers, MSLs. Read the journal articles that the MSL Society has. They have great tips. And then, of course, your podcasts. They're awesome. You have such amazing tips for people. I discovered these after I met you at the meeting, and I listen to them when I'm working out all the time, when I'm in the car, when I'm driving to visit with one of our key opinion leaders, and they're really, really helpful. And, that network becomes your family. Some of the other advice I've learned through the presentations I've heard from managers is that, really work on those soft skills, the critical thinking, the problem solving, work on your public speaking, be able to work in a team, which most healthcare providers can work in a team because that's really what it's all about. We're working as a team to save lives. Be independent, be open-minded too, because you never know. And then the last thing I'd give advice for, for these people that are looking for their first MSL role, because, I know that you may be in that position where you're tired and, you're burned out and you're trying to look for something else, but I really recommend being patient because when the time is right, it will happen. You don't want to just settle for anything. You really want to be patient and get the right position at the right time with the right manager and the right team.
That's great advice. You're hired. If you ever want to be a recruiter, you literally nailed it. Those are all the things that I find myself telling folks, aspiring MSLs all the time. So I think that's really, really good. I hope people are taking notes right now. I think that's really good advice.
Yeah.
But let's kind of I want to flip this conversation into, I want to hear your take on why clinicians make good MSLs. If there's hiring managers out there that are listening to this, what can you tell them?
Oh my gosh. It's an awesome question. And I think clinicians make excellent candidates for these positions. It could be an MD, it could be a PA, NP, and even RNs. We all have this extensive medical training and knowledge. We've worked in the field with patients. We've cared for them under high stress environments, especially this COVID pandemic. I don't know when it's ever going to end. And then, we have this ability to really understand what it's like to be on the patient side, the patient care side. So, we can understand what, our key opinion leaders, these specialists that are working in these high stress environments may be facing on a daily basis. We've experienced that firsthand. We will have empathy if this provider has to cancel. We'll have empathy if he has to run late for a meeting. And then we know what they're going through. And, traditionally, I will say, as you know, the MSL role has been more PharmDs and PhDs in the past. And I think these people make extremely valuable MSLs. They have detailed pharmacological backgrounds, scientific backgrounds, especially if they're, the expert at that in their therapeutic area. And I think each degree can offer something unique to the MSL role. And, having a well-balanced team with a variety of those backgrounds would be extremely beneficial for the company.
I mean, what you're saying is validated by the fact that more and more companies are looking for clinicians. So I think that's very accurate. And now that you've landed into your first role, and you've been doing this for a few months now, I know it hasn't been years, but you've been doing this long enough that I'm sure you've learned a few things. So why don't you share, if you can, with everyone, all the clinicians and folks that are listening, what have you learned since you've been in MSL? And is there anything that surprised you?
Yeah, so I started this position in November, so it really only has been a few months, so I'm still a newbie. But I guess the question, what have I learned in the past few months? Oh my goodness, what haven't I learned? I feel like I'm constantly drinking from a fire hose. It is completely different than medicine, but it really is incredible. The one thing I think that I've learned so much is I have a much greater appreciation for what has to happen behind the scenes. And from what it be to clinical trials, to sales, to marketing, to getting insurance to cover a test, to meeting with the doctors and more. And I find it's awesome how all these people work together for the one common goal to help that patient. It's just a different level than what I've been doing the past 10 years of just direct one-on-one patient care. But it's so fascinating. The other thing I will say, I've learned, one of the key functions of MSLs is meeting with what we call these key opinion leaders. These are physicians or PAs and Ps. They're in clinical practice, in academia, or in the community. And my role as MSL is not all about just helping spread the message of the company, but also equally important to bring that scientific information and that insights back to the company. So important to bring those insights back so we can, move advance medicine forward. And the other thing, this is quite funny, I've learned, and my family has had to learn this too, is yes, mommy is home, but I'm still working. And so even though my office is literally next door to the toy room, I am working from home. And so they have to learn that. And, having that work-life balance, your office could be home, so you could get sucked into it and work all the time, and making sure you have that work-life balance. My manager is a huge promoter of this. She tells me you have to be balanced in your life. And so definitely when you are looking for a position, make sure you get hired by someone that, is a really good manager, because it's so important. One other thing I learned, you're learning every day. There's never a day I'm not learning. There's always diversity in my day. There's one day I could be working from home on multiple projects, helping more clinical trial team or marketing. Another day I could be spending, a couple of days at a scientific conference, gathering information and insights, bringing them back to the company. And then like this morning, I gave a presentation to one of the leading doctors at a university virtually, and that could be virtual or in person. So there's so much I've learned. I know that there's so much more to learn, and I'm excited for what's next.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm sure you probably know, I talked to a lot of MSLs. I talked to a lot of MSL managers. It seems like you've been doing this for a long time. Like, you actually sound like someone who has a lot more years of experience than you do. So hats off to you and to Leona. I feel like sending a message to Leona and telling her great job in hiring you. But I probably don't have to. Sure, he knows that. So now, obviously, it's never as easy as it seems. So there's got to be some challenges that you're going through right now. So let's talk about some of the challenges you're facing.
Yeah. So, it's definitely challenging. Gosh, I remember the day I went to tell my old manager I was leaving, and I started having palpitations like, oh my gosh, and you get these comments like, oh, you're going to the dark side or you're going to the sales side. And so that's a big challenge. A lot of people will say, oh, you're going to be a salesperson. And that's a big myth of the MSL career. And so, when I made this transition to do this, I had to tell people, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to be the scientific expert and sharing these insights. And, I'm going to be working with commercial and with sales and marketing. And my primary purpose is to foster those peer relationships with those key physicians and KOLs. And we do this with professionalism, integrity. And so that's been a challenge because you get those comments, from some of the peers that I came from, but that's okay. And then another big challenge, this is quite funny. We talked about this before we got on the recording, is managing the virtualness and the technology and the constant stream of emails and the meetings and just getting used to that virtual workspace and seeing yourself on camera. It's really hard to get used to. But, it's definitely getting better. Some other things I've learned, is that you have to be an independent learner. There's no one that's going to be just babysitting you every minute of the day. You have to be independent. You have to be motivated. You have to schedule. You have to plan. Again, working from home, you have to be motivated to stay and get your work done. Whereas I could be out playing in the snow right now because I'm snowed in my house, but I'm not. Some of the other challenges from the clinical side, because this is more about clinicians transitioning to an MSL role, is this is more of an open-ended position. So there are no RVUs, as we call it in the clinical world, where you're seeing 18 to 20 patients a day and you open the chart, you close the chart, you're done. This is more focused on quality interactions with your peers and with your collaborations, your KOLs and networking. So you have to understand that that's what this is about. And it's not about just how many patients did you see that day, which is the benefit of it too. I think that's why I love it. And yeah, those are I will say the other thing, my role as MSL in my company is a diagnostic company. And so it is a little different than traditional MSL in the pharma settings. And we do work, together with a lot of our teams, our marketing team and sales team as well. So that I will point out that is different. And we are a relatively new team. So we are a smaller company. I have to be motivated. I have to lean on my teammates and my manager for the learning process. I've been shadowing other team members, sales reps, and it's been very beneficial. And the last most important advice that Leona tells me all the time is you have to give yourself grace, because this is a new position and there's so much to learn out there. And so you have to give yourself grace, because you can't just assume that you know everything right away. It's going to take time.
Good advice.
Yeah.
I love that. That's great. Wow.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like you're really far along. So that's a credit to whoever's training you and getting you up to speed. So if there's practitioners and clinicians out there that are really interested in industry,
Yep.
what about, what skills do you feel are most important for them to develop? And obviously, when you're looking to transition into a job, whatever job it is, you have to show that you have transferable skills. So what do you think is most important for those people to know and to develop so that they can get noticed by people in industry?
Yeah, so we briefly touched on this earlier. We talked about the soft skills. I heard this so much at the MSL Society meeting when the managers were talking about what recruiters are talking about, what they're looking for. Critical thinking, problem solving, public speaking, writing, teamwork, things like that. Being able to collaborate on a team, be okay to call for help, stay open-minded, have the emotional intelligence as well. But I will say, for those clinicians that are looking to be an MSL, don't undervalue your experience as a clinician. I mean, you've had this ability to listen and understand the patient and the provider perspective. I mean, you've trained extremely hard. You've learned how to take care of patients' lives. You've saved lives. You prescribed complicated medications. You've ran ACLS. You've held people's hands that are dying. And so you provide, such great value to the as MSL just because of your background. I mean, for sure. I would not underestimate. And then again, the last thing, and I say this over and over, but be patient, because when the time will happen, it will happen, and it'll be the right position for you.
Yeah, it's a competitive field. If you don't have patience, you're trying to break into this, You're going to get burnt out quick.
Sure.
You really, it's definitely a marathon. It's not a sprint. So if anybody's out there and you're looking to make a transition, just realize it's not you. It just takes time. And a lot of it happens to be the networking piece, right place, right time. I don't like to use the word luck because I don't believe in luck. I believe that luck happens when hard work meets opportunity.
Exactly.
That's something that I just truly believe in. So keep working hard, keep networking, keep putting yourself in the right place, and then good things are going to happen.
Exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about, so you entered into industry, into an MSL role in a difficult time because we're still in the pandemic. Things are still in this hybrid virtual kind of thing. How difficult has that been for you?
Yeah. I mean, virtual is different. I used to go to work at 6 a.m. every morning and face to face with people until 5, 6 p.m. at night. So, in-person meetings and in-person interactions are always the goal, right? I mean, it creates more personal interaction with people. But now, so what I've been doing is more of a hybrid. I do some virtual, some in person. I've had a couple trips and conferences and things like that. And so the challenge of the virtual, is, it's gauging the audience, right? So you can't, if you're giving an oral presentation, and it's really hard with the Zoom, you can't see everybody there to see, are they really engaged? Are they listening? Do they look confused? Whereas in person, you can actually do that. Virtually, again, we talked about this, is you have to be independent about, structuring your day and structuring your time, because you could get carried away with something else and playing in the snow or whatever it may be and not focused on it. But the other flip side is virtual creates so many opportunities to get more done in a little time. So instead of spending a whole day traveling to New York for a visit, I could get that done within an hour and then accomplish maybe 5 other things that day, right? So that's been an advantage. And so, just taking the time and staying motivated and staying connected with your team as well. We do a lot of team meetings. And I feel like, even though I've only met a few of them. I've only met some of them in person, but even though I haven't met a lot of them in person, I feel like I know them very well because of all the meetings we've had virtually, and it's been good.
Well, it sounds like you're doing great. What's next for you? I know it's a little early to be asking this, but where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? Or what's like next for you on your radar?
I don't know. I have this, I always have, like you said, hard work, right? You work hard and it'll pay off. And so I just want to continue to work hard. And to me, I believe, let God lead that, whatever next step for me. Keep networking with people. I love my manager, Leona, and she's an inspiration. So, whatever she can do to help me and mentor me. And I joined the MSL, or I applied for the MSL mentorship program. So whatever they can offer advice to me too. And I'm just looking to grow, to continue to learn, and also to continue to give back. So if there are clinicians out there that are looking to get into this role, like, I want to be that person to help you, because there was people that helped me. So I want to contribute back to them as well. So definitely anybody that has questions can reach out to me through LinkedIn or whatever.
I'm sure you'll hear from folks. That's what we do here. You definitely will. So that's really nice of you to offer. And thanks for coming on. This has been great.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. I know you're just getting over a cold, and you rocked it. You totally rocked it.
Thank you.
So we'll
Thank
have
you
to
for
do
having
this
me.
again. Oh, no doubt. No doubt. Well, best of luck to you. Keep in touch.
Okay.
And keep cranking, man. I'm a big fan. I think you're going to do some great things.
Great. Thank you. No cartwheels today, though. Okay.
No cartwheels today. There's video.
Awesome.
Go on LinkedIn. There's video of the cartwheels. Just saying.
Yes. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much for listening to the show. If you've enjoyed it, please subscribe so that you don't miss episodes in the future, and feel free to leave a rating or a review or a comment. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.